The city never really slept, but for Lena, the nights had grown too quiet. Her apartment overlooked a line of glowing windows, each one a square of someone else's life. Laughter, the flicker of a TV, the shadow of someone brushing their hair. She used to love this view, the pulse of the world continuing outside her own glass walls. But now, it only reminded her of what she'd lost. It had been 14 months since the divorce. 14 months since she'd stood in that courthouse beside Aaron, pretending her heart wasn't breaking with every signature. They hadn't shouted, hadn't blamed each other. The silence between them had been the real ending. Love hadn't disappeared. It had simply run out of ways to survive. Lena was 34 now, a freelance architect with a reputation for minimalist designs and a heart that was anything but. She poured herself into her work, staying up until dawn sketching lines that might one day become something permanent. Unlike the love she once thought was, Aaron lived across the city in a smaller apartment, though he could afford more. He told himself he preferred the simplicity, the anonymity. He worked as a high school music teacher, the kind that stayed late after class, fixing broken guitar strings and encouraging shy kids to sing louder. His students loved him. His colleagues said he had the calmness of a man at peace. They didn't see the box of old photographs under his bed, or how his hands still reached for the right side of the mattress when he woke up. For months, they hadn't spoken. Not out of anger, but because neither knew what to say. They'd built a life together once, and tearing it apart had taken everything out of them. Still, there were moments, a certain song on the radio, a familiar street corner, the smell of cinnamon and coffee on a Sunday, that brought the other back like a whisper out on an early spring morning. Fate, or maybe just coincidence, found a way to tangle them again. Lena had been hired to redesign the interior of an old theater being converted into a community arts center. It was the kind of project she loved, beauty born from decay. When she arrived for her first site visit, the stage lights were off, and dust danced in the narrow beams of sunlight that slipped through the high windows. She heard someone humming before she saw him. Low, soft, a tune she recognized from years ago. Her heart froze. Aaron stepped out from behind a velvet curtain, a clipboard in his hand. He looked almost the same, maybe a little leaner, maybe more tired. The kind of tired that came from missing something you couldn't name. "Lena," he said, startled but not unkind. She blinked. "You're part of this project?" He nodded. "Music director for the after-school program." "You?" "Architect," she replied quietly. "I didn't know." Neither moved closer. The air between them felt thick, full of things they weren't ready to say. After a moment, Aaron smiled. That small, careful smile she used to love. "Guess we'll be seeing each other then." She didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified. The following weeks unfolded like a story neither of them had meant to write. Lena and Aaron met at the old theater almost every afternoon. Their roles required collaboration. Her designs depended on how the music rooms would be structured, and his programs depended on the spaces she created. It was professional at first, polite but cautious. Yet underneath the measured words and clipped emails, something fragile and familiar stirred. Sometimes, when Aaron spoke about his plans, a small recording studio for students, a stage where local artists could perform, Lena found herself watching his hands, remembering how they used to move across her back, tracing shapes only he could see. And when she unrolled her blueprints across the long wooden table, focused and quiet, Aaron would catch the faint scent of her perfume. The same one she used to wear when they'd sit on their old balcony, wrapped in a blanket, drinking wine after midnight. One evening, the work ran later than planned. The light outside had dimmed to a soft blue, and the only glow came from the desk lamp between them. Lena was sketching something by hand, her pencil moving quickly. When it broke, she sighed, frustrated, and Aaron instinctively reached for his bag. "Here," he said, pulling out a mechanical pencil. "You always hated these, didn't you?" Her eyes flicked up, surprised. "You remember that?" He smiled faintly. "I remember everything." Something cracked open inside her then, something she had tried to seal shut with reason and time. She looked down, unable to hold his gaze. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. "We were good, weren't we?" Aaron hesitated. "Yeah," he said. We just stopped believing that was enough. The words lingered between them, gentle but heavy that a few days later, it rained. Hard. The kind of rain that turned the city into a watercolor blur. Lena was on her way home from the theater when she saw Aaron standing under the awning of a coffee shop, soaked and laughing at something on his phone. Without thinking, she pulled over. "Need a ride?" He looked up, startled, then smiled through the rain. "You sure? Get in before you drown." He did. The car smelled faintly of jasmine and coffee, the same scent that had filled their old kitchen on quiet mornings. As they drove through the rain, neither spoke for a while. It was comfortable, almost familiar, like slipping into a memory they both missed. When they reached his place, Aaron hesitated before unbuckling his seatbelt. "Thanks, Lena. Really?" She nodded. "Anytime." He opened the door, paused, and then, in a voice so low she almost missed it, said, "I've missed talking to you." Her heart clenched. "Yeah," she whispered. "Me too." When he stepped out, she sat there for a long moment, watching the rain slide down the windshield. She knew she should leave it at that. They had already broken once. But love, real love, has a way of haunting the places it once lived. The theater had started to come alive again. What once smelled of dust and old curtains now carried faint traces of paint, wood polish, and the promise of music. Lena came in one morning to find Aaron at the piano, his fingers drifting across the keys like he was remembering how to breathe. The melody was soft, hesitant at first, then fuller, warmer. She stopped at the back of the room and just listened. It was their song. The one he used to play on quiet Sundays when the sun filled their living room and she would lie on the couch, sketching in her notebook. When the last note faded, he turned and froze when he saw her. "You still play it," she said softly. "I never stopped," he admitted. "I just didn't have anyone to play it for." The truth in that sentence made something inside her ache. She moved closer, standing beside him, the smell of cedar and coffee wrapping around them both. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "if we gave up too soon?" He looked at her for a long time, his eyes searching hers. Every day, for a moment, the world outside disappeared. There was only the echo of the piano, the thrum of their hearts, the quiet reminder that love like theirs didn't die. It just hid until someone was brave enough to look for it again. She sat beside him, their shoulders brushed, barely, but enough to send that old spark racing through her veins. "I kept waiting for the anger to fade," she whispered, but it never really was anger. It was grief. Aaron turned toward her, his voice low. "Grief for what?" "For the version of us that couldn't make it," she said, "and for the part of me that still believes we could have." He didn't answer. He just reached out and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The same small gesture that used to make her feel seen in a way no one else ever could. That night, neither of them could sleep. Lena lay awake, replaying every glance, every word. She told herself she was over him. That time and distance had done their job. But time, she realized, didn't heal love. It only hid it beneath the routines we built to survive. Aaron, meanwhile, sat at his kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. He stared at the phone on the counter, and her name still saved in his contacts, Lena Redhart. He never changed it. He never could. He thought about calling her, about saying all the things he hadn't said the first time around. But the fear was still there, not of rejection, but of hope. Because hope was dangerous when it came to her. The next day, when Lena arrived at the theater, she found a small envelope sitting on her desk. Inside was a single sheet of paper, no note, no signature. Just a handwritten line of lyrics from an old song he used to sing to her. "Love doesn't end. It waits where you left it." She read it 3 times before pressing it to her chest. Eyes closed, tears slipping quietly down her cheeks. By the time summer arrived, the theater had transformed. The cracked floors were polished smooth, the walls repainted, the stage lights gleaming again for the first time in decades. The grand reopening was only a week away, and everyone was buzzing with excitement. Everyone except Lena and Aaron. They worked together, smiled for the team, but something had shifted, a quiet current pulling them closer with every shared glance, every moment that lingered too long. It wasn't reckless or rushed. It was something deeper, something that hummed beneath the surface like an unfinished song. That Friday evening, after most of the crew had gone home, Lena stayed behind to finish her final inspection. The golden light from the setting sun filtered through the high windows, painting the rows of empty seats in amber. Aaron walked in quietly, still carrying his guitar case. "You're still here," he said softly. "I wanted to make sure everything's ready for Monday." He nodded, placing his guitar down. "It looks beautiful. You made it beautiful." Lena smiled faintly. "We did." For a moment, they just stood there, side by side, watching the light fade across the stage they had rebuilt together. "You know," Aaron began, his voice low, "when we signed those papers, I told myself I'd stop thinking about you. I tried to move on, but..." He laughed bitterly. "Turns out I'm terrible at forgetting." Lena turned toward him. Her heart was already beating too fast. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I can't pretend anymore," he said, stepping closer. "Because every day I see you, and every day I remember how it felt to love you, and how it still feels." Tears filled her eyes, blurring his face. "Aaron, don't." "I know," he said quickly. "I know it's complicated, but I don't care anymore. I'd rather hurt loving you than feel nothing without you." The words broke her. She dreamed of hearing them again, but not like this. Not when life had already moved them apart in ways that couldn't be undone. "I still love you," she whispered. "God, I never stopped. But what if we just hurt each other again?" He took her hands in his grip trembling. "Then we'll try harder. We'll learn. We'll forgive." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to fall into the promise of that touch, that voice, that heartbeat she still knew as well as her own. But love wasn't the only thing between them anymore. There was the reality of what came after, the broken trust, the long nights, the dreams that had pulled them in different directions. She closed her eyes. "I don't know if I can do it again." He swallowed hard, his voice barely audible. "Then just tell me you don't love me, and I'll walk away." Silence filled the room. When she finally opened her eyes, tears slid down her cheeks. "I can't tell you that." Aaron reached up, brushing a tear from her face, his touch trembling. "Then don't say anything." And in the fading light of the theater they'd rebuilt together, he kissed her, softly at first, then desperately, like time itself had been waiting for them to remember how it felt. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't an ending. It was a beginning they both knew might break them again. But for that moment, neither cared. The night of the grand reopening came with rain. The city lights shimmered through wet pavement, and the newly restored theater glowed like a heartbeat against the gray. Inside, people filled the seats, families, students, city officials, all gathered to celebrate the revival of something old and beloved. Aaron moved through the crowd, greeting his students, checking last-minute details with the sound crew. Lena stood near the back, her dress simple but elegant, her hair falling softly over her shoulders. She watched him. The way he smiled, the way he belonged in that space, surrounded by music and people and life. She realized that this was what she'd fallen in love with years ago. The warmth he carried wherever he went. When the lights dimmed, the room hushed. Aaron stepped onto the stage with his guitar, the spotlight catching the small scar on his jaw, the one she used to trace when he slept. He looked out into the audience, and for a second, his eyes found hers. "This song," he said quietly, "is for someone who taught me that love doesn't always mean staying. Sometimes it just means never forgetting." Then he played. The melody was slow, haunting, full of everything they had been. The laughter, the heartbreak, the endless ache of two people who never truly let go. Lena felt each note like a pulse against her ribs. By the end, tears shimmered in her eyes. She clapped with the rest, but her hands shook. After the ceremony, when the crowd thinned and the lights softened, Aaron found her standing alone near the back of the stage. "You didn't tell me you were going to play that," she said. That he smiled faintly. "Would you have stopped me?" "No," she whispered. "I think I needed to hear it." They stood in silence for a while, the sound of laughter echoing faintly from the lobby. "I've been offered a position in Boston," he said suddenly. "Music coordinator for the state arts program." Her breath caught. "When?" "Next month." The words hung heavy in the air. She tried to smile, but it trembled. "That's incredible. You deserve it." He nodded. though the smile on his face didn't reach his eyes. "I wanted to tell you before anyone else." Lena's voice was small. "Do you want me to ask you to stay?" He looked at her, really looked at her. "No," he said gently, "because if you did, I might." The tears came quietly this time. She stepped forward, closing the space between them. He took her face in his hands, memorizing the shape of her, the feel of her, like he was trying to hold on to something the world would soon take away. "I love you," he said simply. "I always will." She pressed her forehead to his. "And I'll always wish that was enough." They didn't kiss this time. They didn't promise to meet again or pretend the future could be rewritten. They just stood there, holding on for as long as they could, until the moment finally broke and time began to move again. The next morning, Lena returned to the theater alone. The place was quiet now, the echoes of the night before still lingering in the air. On the piano, she found an envelope, his handwriting on the front. Inside was a single photograph, the two of them years ago, standing in their first apartment, grinning at the camera with paint on their hands. On the back, he had written 4 words. "We were worth it." She traced the letters with her thumb, smiling through the tears. Outside, the city buzzed to life again. Taxis honking, shopkeepers opening their doors, the rhythm of every day beginning anew. Lena slipped the photo in her sketchbook, picked up her bag, and stepped out into the morning light. Love, she realized, doesn't always return to stay. Sometimes, it just returns to remind you that it was real.